Reese. Why me? Why does it want me?
There was a nuclear war. A few years from now, all this whole place, everything, it's gone. Just gone.
It was the machines, Sarah. Defense network computers. New, powerful, hooked into everything, trusted to run it all. They say it got smart, a new order of intelligence. Then it saw all people as a threat, not just the ones on the other side. It decided our fate in a microsecond. Extermination. There was one man who taught us to fight, to storm the wire of the camps, to smash those metal motherfuckers into junk. He turned it around. He brought us back from the brink. His name is Connor. John Connor. Your son, Sarah. Your unborn son.
Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Matt and I'm here with Andrew. Today we're going to be talking about The Terminator, the beginning of James Cameron's epic tale of mankind's last hope and the difference between fate and free will. So grab your popcorn and Reese's Pieces and let's break it down on the Post Credit Podcast. There was fireworks going off like, 200 yards away. The city, quote unquote city, was flat.
What time at night was it?
About 9 o'clock.
I'd say past 9 would be when I'd tell the kids to stop doing it. Because, yeah, you do have people that have to go to work in the morning. And I'd say 9 o'clock is the cutoff.
It was Saturday night, and then at 9 o'clock, the city was blowing off fireworks anyway, so they were being loud too. So
ridiculous.
But then after that, we left at like 2 in the morning, and then got home, got up, went to church. Well, a little bit after that, but went to church eventually, and then, yeah.
Sweet. So, we got a 30-year anniversary coming up on Saturday.
I'm a lot older than 30, all right?
Yeah.
Not a lot, but I am older than 30.
But Terminator 2 Judgment Day is going to be 30 years old on Saturday the 3rd.
Okay.
Which is what we're going to review next week and everything. But 30 years old, man. And that was the 90s movie, It's not, you feel like 30 years old, that should have been the 80s movie, the part 1.
Yeah.
But
and it's still like top of its class, in any category it could be in,
Yeah. I was watching, well, I'll save that for the T2 one, but
yeah.
Do you remember watching this movie for the first time?
Yes.
Or is it just something that you always knew that you've watched sometime, but you can't remember when you actually watched it for the first time?
I watched it a long time ago. Like, the first time I watched it was probably maybe in the 90s, I think. And when I watched it at first, it wasn't one of these things where, we should have been watching it probably at that age,
I could have sworn I watched T2 first and then came back to this one. Or no, because I know we had it on VHS or something.
I watched it, but I mean, there are scenes in it that obviously I probably shouldn't have been watching at that age.
That's probably why I did want to watch it.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've always known that I've seen this movie, so I can't really nail down. It must have been too young for me to remember or whatever. But, T2's always kind of stuck out there. But part 1, the first Terminator, this has always been kind of my like personal favorite. Just because my favorite character of the entire franchise is Kyle Reese.
Yeah.
So, I see him as the Obi-Wan of the thing, So, like, Terminator is the Darth Vader, right?
Yeah.
And he becomes more prominent and more lines and stuff in the second one than he had in the first. Obi-Wan is like the Kyle Reese because it's, Sarah and John are kind of like the Luke Skywalker, where they're learning, they're the chosen ones kind of or whatever. And Obi-Wan was the protector. That's kind of how I see Kyle Reese. I don't know. Maybe I just like characters like that. They both died in their introductory movies, all that kind of stuff. Making a sacrifice so that the hero could live and all that.
But that character, what's great about that character too is that he's literally at least mentioned in almost every single one of the films in one shape or form. In a way that
he's got a legacy.
He does have a legacy, and it's carried on. Even though like in Obi-Wan in the original, I mean it's not the actual original, but they're the original Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
And so, he died, Obi-Wan dies, spoiler alert, he dies in the very first film that we watch of Star Wars. We get to see him a lot more in
the prequels.
in the prequels and stuff, but it's again, he dies, but his legacy carried on throughout all the films. You know what I mean? And his foreboding, and things that he said, carried on in all the following films. I mean, because Kyle Reese is really the original narrator of this series, because he goes in there and he basically tells the whole
not
story.
Literal narrator, because he's Sarah is like the literal narrator.
She's the literal narrator, but
he's the one that we get all the information from.
He's the original narrator.
He
sets up the whole story, and he sets up the whole universe.
The reason we know about the war, Judgment Day, Skynet, Terminators, what they can do,
what Sarah Connor is going to,
what
even
John
the
Connor
name
is,
of John Connor,
the entire lore, and history of this universe of the Terminator is set up and explained by the wise one that's been through it all, like Obi-Wan, Kyle Reese.
And you look at Sarah Connor, she never, we're not going to talk about all the films, but she never moved on from Kyle Reese no matter what.
Who do you think the linchpin is in this entire stories that they're the most important piece?
Wow, that's a good question.
Because I don't think it's John.
No, it's either Sarah Connor or Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator.
I think it's Sarah. I think she's the linchpin because, and we can get more into this in the second one. It's one of the things I want to talk about and make sure that we're just talking about, and so our audience knows, we're talking about the Terminator as if we haven't seen Terminator 2 Judgment
1984
Day.
version.
Yeah, we both have, I think, some things that we want to say that bleed into Terminator 2, because the way I feel is Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 that's Terminator.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. Those were little alternate universes, little kind of, what do you call them, Elseworld stories and comics or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's the...
it's Elseworld.
Yeah,
it's like things that isn't,
the multiverse.
It's not canon.
Yeah.
But it's something that could have been told.
It's the multiverse.
Yeah, or like the extended universe in Star Wars. This could have happened, but it's not part of the official story.
Yeah.
I consider that part 1 and part 2 because that was James Cameron, and he had a story to tell. And I think you have the dichotomy of these two movies. One lays everything at Fate's feet.
And I got to say this.
And the other one lays everything at free will. So we get into that, but the only thing I wanted to say real quick was that, and I'm going to talk about this more next week, but John Connor, I believe, isn't the linchpin because he is an aberration.
Yeah.
The only reason he exists is because of the Terminator.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And maybe the only reason the Terminator and Skynet exists is because of John. Because if that Terminator hadn't come back, Skynet wouldn't have gotten the robot hand and the chip.
But we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves.
Exactly. So I don't want to get too old. But I just want to say that, John Connor is of huge importance in this movie. But I think the most important person in this entire lore is Sarah. Because...
you say that, but also, like you just said,
John had no part in the first movie.
Right. You say that, but you also said that the Terminator, if there wouldn't be John Connor, there wouldn't have been the Terminator, and the Terminator is actually what really kind of set off everything. Because if that Terminator didn't come back, because as we'll talk about in the second one,
Kyle wouldn't have had to come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
John would make it. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that's why. And like I said, we can get more into that.
But that's why I think they call it the movie's Terminator rather than saying, except for the TV show.
That's what I was going to ask you. No. It's good because we got the same idea. Why is it called Terminator? Why isn't it called Judgment Day or Skynet or I don't know any one of those?
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at the TV show, it's called the Sarah Connor Chronicles. And that's just really surrounding Sarah Connor in a way. Even though you have John Connor and you have the female Terminator. It's still Sarah Connor's life that they're really basing everything off of.
Now, this can get very muddy because time travel is very muddy. Whether it's Avengers, Back to the Future, this one,
time travel,
as far as you say, Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating. But what these movies did that was really good is it didn't really try to explain it too much. Parts 3, 4, 5.
That's what I was about to say.
Did.
Yeah.
They tried to get into it and they tried to make it make sense. And the smart thing that these movies did was, let's say time travel, we'll put a couple things in here you got to understand, but besides that, we're not going to try to get involved because all time travel is a paradox. Yeah. And paradox, to us, it just means things that we don't understand yet.
Yeah.
So it's impossible because you can't go back and kill your grandpa to make it to where you don't exist anymore because if you did that, then your grandpa wouldn't have been alive, so you wouldn't have been alive to do that, so you never did it, but you did because he's alive.
Do you feel like this is the Terminator movie is the originator when it comes to cinema time travel storytelling in a way?
Well, yeah, James Cameron said he wanted to write a definitive robot movie, basically, and there hadn't been one. I mean, you have tons of movies out there
back in the
with
50s
robots and everything like that, but I mean, if you say, what's a definitive robot movie or killer robot movie or whatever, automatically everybody's going to go to Terminator.
Or toys.
Yeah, probably Robin Williams and his sister.
Yeah.
Terrible. Gosh, why did we review that movie?
I don't know. It's the king of comedy right there, though. I mean,
we introduced Robin Williams to the show with the movie like Toys. Well, here's the thing: is that as we've said, we like these movies until we, or maybe we just have good memories of them, and we watch them. We're like, "There's not really good movies," but
yeah.
So, anyways, just to get into this, today we're talking about The Terminator. Did you watch this just recently, or?
Well, recently enough.
Okay.
I just watched it over the weekend again for the umpteenth time. Or whatever.
Do you watch it often?
I try to every once in a while when I get in the mood for it. I mean, because
this one or do you just go to T2? Because a lot of people just go straight to T2.
I can't because I'll go to T2 more often than I would go to T1. I mean, just because Terminator 1 is a setup, and as when we've watched all of the other ones, we kind of get first one. It's like, okay, yeah, we already know what's going to happen, and the real good meat of the story doesn't really happen till T2.
Yeah. So Terminator. It was a movie from 1984. It was directed by James Cameron. It was also written by James Cameron, but Gale Ann Hurd and William Wisher did have additional writing credits. Now, Gale Ann Hurd is obviously James Cameron's producing partner. Mm-hmm. They've been producing partners ever since From Here to now. They're still partners. They got married, they got divorced, all that kind of stuff, because James Cameron likes to marry the people he works with.
Linda Hamilton for that.
And the girl from Titanic.
Yeah.
And he usually, well, anyways. William Wisher, he just wrote things like Sarah's Introduction and something else I can't remember. But it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor. Schwarzenegger is the Terminator, obviously. And Michael Biehn is Kyle Reese. You got Lance Henriksen, he's in here. Rick Rossovich as Matt. Earl Bowen as Dr. Silberman, who you'll see again, and good old Bill Paxton. So
I know, and you get just such a brief introduction to Bill Paxton. I mean, for what, like not even a minute screen time.
Well, I like it because we got 3 actors in here that were also all in Aliens as well.
Well, and remember that what did they do? That redo of it, wasn't it like somebody that looked like Bill Paxton and looked like
On a redo?
Yeah, remember when they redid it recently?
Oh yeah.
And he went back in the past. Didn't that guy look like Bill Paxton?
Maybe a little bit.
And then the guy from Highlander, or that real square jaw,
Brian Thompson.
Yeah. Both those guys. I feel
and
like
he was like a big guy, but then to see him get lifted up by Arnold,
I
you're
know.
like, ooh, yeah, you weren't big back then.
Well, because you watch him in the Highlander, and he's throwing people in Highlander. You know what I mean? And but just to see Bill Paxton, I mean, this is classic.
Guy in? Oh, he was Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Yeah, but but the fact that you see Bill Paxton, this is like classic weird science type Bill Paxton.
But you have Bill Paxton, you have Michael Biehn, and Lance Hendrickson, who all played Hicks. No, Bill Paxton.
Talking about the Alien movies?
Yeah. Michael Biehn played Hicks. Bill Paxton played Hudson. And Lance Hendrickson played Bishop, the android.
Well, also, did you mention Michael Biehn too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was Hicks, and Bill Paxton was Hudson, I think.
That was actually on my notes because
and Lance Hendrickson. So all 3 of them were in Aliens. He played Bishop and everything.
Science fiction. I mean, those guys do well in science fiction. You know, I feel like.
Interestingly enough, when James Cameron was trying to shop this script to sell it, he had his buddy, who was Lance Hendrickson, they were buddies and stuff, dress up as the Terminator and go in, and whenever they went to go, show it to the executives at Orion or whatever, he went like kicked down the door, and he was just like walking around with like a leather jacket and everything, like, and glasses like he's the Terminator and everything. And then of course James Cameron had a bunch of storyboards, but
well, as you notice, we don't really get the Arnold in the leather. I for some reason I was thinking that he was in the leather from the get-go. Arnold, with the leather jacket.
He was. I mean, like at the very beginning of the movie, he had like a little blue punk jacket or whatever it was, but he did get the leather jacket later in the movie.
But what I'm saying is I felt like, because I think in the remake, because Arnold walks into the bar.
Tech Noir.
Yeah, no, in the remake.
Oh, yeah.
He walks into
Judgment
the bar.
Day.
Yeah, and he takes the jacket and the pink sunglasses or whatever. it was.
Oh, that's in part 3. Yeah.
And so I was like thinking in this one that he had the leather jacket, but then I'm like, wait, no, that's not the leather jacket right at first. Same thing with the sunglasses. One thing I noticed
the punk
with him,
aesthetic first.
Yeah, exactly. For that time period, it probably fit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then of course in the second movie, you had the early '90s. It made sense to make him a biker, but
yeah.
This story, I should say, it was born out of a fever dream. James Cameron, he was, who did he work for? He worked for some kind of director that was known for guerrilla filmmaking. So that means, you're going over different locations and you're just shooting it. You're not getting permits. You're not getting approval or anything like that. You're just shooting it, making it realistic, doing low budget type of tactics or whatever. So he learned that from his mentor, and he he got his first movie, which was Piranha 2: The Spawning, and he kind of disowns it to this day. He still considers The Terminator his first film, but technically his first film that he directed was Piranha 2. And he hated it. He hated what he was doing. I think he was down in Peru or something like that. He felt isolated because he didn't know the language down there. He was sick, and he had this fever and everything, and so he was all by himself. And he had this image of a metal torso, of like the Terminator, coming through fire and crawling towards him. Mm-hmm. And he said it was like, it was one of the scariest things he's ever felt or seen or whatever. And so he immediately started writing the story. But it also happened to kind of resemble a story from The Outer Limits. Do you know that story? The controversy with supposed plagiarism.
No. Oh, I think we talked about this before.
Yeah. So there's a couple episodes of The Outer Limits written by Harlan Ellison. One of them was called The Soldier. And it was about basically two soldiers that came back in time and were fighting each other. And one like had, technology or robots or something like that. And it was there's not much similarity there, but, soldiers from the future. But the storyline was completely off and everything. And, but he sued Orion and was like, hey, for plagiarism, like, you guys ripped me off. This is my story, and James Cameron, of course, was like, no, BS, we're not, this is my work, all this kind of stuff. So to this day, he's called that writer a parasite. And basically tell him where he can stick it and everything. Yeah. But that's kind of the controversy about that. But he had a different idea, and obviously there's a lot of we talk about it a lot on the show, Christian allegories and everything. And can you get more of an allegory than his name being John Connor, JC, Jesus Christ or whatever? He's the savior of mankind. Yeah. And, different things like that. So. But it started out like that, and it just kind of progressed, and he had all these great ideas, and he got everything set up, he got everything casted. Arnold was supposed to come in for the Kyle Reese character, but he liked the Terminator a lot more, and James Cameron wanted the studio wanted Arnold for Kyle Reese. And they were going to hire this guy named O.J. Simpson to play the Terminator, but there was a concern that he was too nice. O.J. Simpson was, and that he didn't exhibit those killer characteristics.
Some foreboding right there. I'll tell you what. Definitely some foreboding right there. Wow.
So they didn't think that he could be a convincing killer, and apparently a jury of 12 of his peers didn't think so either.
Yeah, well.
So, anyways, but finally they casted Arnold, ready to go, and right when they spent a year of pre-production getting everything ready to go, and then the producers of Conan, the Barbarian, exercised a clause in Arnold's contract and said, no, you got to come back and do Conan the Destroyer now. Yeah. And so they had to put everything on hold because that was a priority contract. So he had to go do that. And so while they were waiting, they had to wait for 9 months for Arnold to be done with that so they could start shooting the first Terminator. And while they did that, James Cameron was like, I should write some stuff. And he went ahead and wrote Aliens.
Yeah.
In the time that he was waiting to start this. He wrote the Aliens. He wrote, what else did he write? He wrote a sequel to something, besides Aliens, of course. But I just thought that was pretty interesting that, in his downtime while he's waiting for his actor and everything, he just went ahead and wrote Aliens. He wrote two different scripts at the same time. It was
so
nuts.
He must have been drunk when he wrote Avatar because that's such a horrible movie.
I know I knew that was going to come up.
Yeah.
This conversation. I don't like it that much. I don't think it's as terrible as probably as you do. But I don't get the hype around it. I mean, like, it's a good movie. It's got great visuals and everything. I think the story is whatever. It's like Fern Gully, but it's okay. I get it. It's like an environmental story.
The CGI is not even that good, in my opinion. I don't think it's that good.
I mean, considering you're creating a world from nothing, you're creating a planet. That planet was a lot more involved than what you're used to seeing in different. So I don't know, maybe, but I'm kind of with you. I'm just like, I don't see the big deal, but
no, it's probably it's one of those movies where I'm one of those people that's the movie for me that everybody loves that I can't stand. And I've watched it one time and I refuse to watch it again.
And he's old now, and he's still got 3 movies to make. I think it's supposed to be 4 in total. And he's spent 5 or 6 years on this sequel, at least, right? He's been supposedly making it the last few years.
I don't know.
And he's got 2 more to make past this. This is like I feel like this is what he's chosen to do at the twilight of his career or something. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. I think you could do a lot more things with Terminator, but I don't think you should.
I agree.
I think Terminator 2 was a good ending, and we'll talk about why.
I did like the one with Christian Bale, where it didn't even have
Salvation.
Yeah, it had John Connor in it because that's who Christian Bale played, but other than that, there was no other of the except for the very end. You see Arnold coming out, but it's CGI.
Yeah,
Arnold.
he wasn't in it. He was glad that he got out of that one. I will say,
I enjoyed that one.
See, Terminator Salvation is the most panned, like even more so than Genesis.
Yeah.
And it's it didn't feel like a Terminator movie to me because I feel like you got to have time travel for a good Terminator movie. You got to have people that are going up against advanced technology and are utterly, outgunned.
Yeah.
I think that the drama behind the scenes in that movie overshadowed the actual movie itself. I think there were a lot of cool ideas, but I don't know if they were played out well. I did like the Marcus Wright character. I thought that was kind of interesting. I just don't think it explained it very well.
Well, the fact that he was a prisoner and
you're like, well, is he still there? Because he's got a heart and a brain, but they just said they laid his consciousness on top of the CPU. So I was like, well, then is he not? I don't know. Anyways, that movie's kind of muddy, but I honestly I think that it goes in order of they came out. First and second are great. Third's, and then fourth's a little worse. Fifth's a little worse. Dark Fate wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I kind of saw it and I was like, all right, well, if I never see that again, I won't be upset.
I think they tried too hard to remake Terminator.
Yeah.
The one with Emily Clark.
Oh, Emilia Clarke. That was Genesis.
Genesis. I felt like with that one, they tried too hard to remake the story in a way. Like they were like, hey, maybe if we try to do it this way and try to remake it, that maybe we can, kickstart the series again.
Well, James Cameron had some good things to say about it because when it first came out, he was getting asked about because he might have had a producing credit. I know he had a producing credit in the last one, and he had his hand in it a bit, but. It's that and that last one was supposed to be definitely an Elseworlds story because it didn't have John Connor or whatever. But okay, so we start off with basically a wasteland of nothingness. 2029 AD is the year, so we got about another 8 years to go to get caught up to the first Terminator. Yeah. And war's broken out. The whole world has been nuked to death, basically. So the entire Earth is it even worth fighting for anymore? Yeah. Everything's wasted away. I mean, are there even trees? Okay, Terminators, they could have just cut down all the trees, or found some way to kill all the foliage because they don't need it.
I mean, they pretty much did in a way.
That's what I'm saying. If they just did that, then the atmosphere and humans would die.
But they needed the humans. Yeah. They needed humans basically as a fuel source in a way.
Are you thinking of the Matrix?
Well, not a fuel source, but they needed the humans to what was it?
They had them in prison camps and stuff, but it was only to do certain things. And they took Kyle Reese said that they took components of they used those prisoners and their DNA and their skin and everything to create artificial skin for the infiltrators or whatever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's a wasteland. The credits pop up and talk about the war that destroyed everything and all that kind of stuff. And now the war, the humankind won. They won the war. They had their last battle. They beat the machines. They beat Skynet. But there was one more thing that happened. A Terminator got sent back into time as a last ditch attempt by Skynet to win. A Terminator was sent back in time to kill the mother of the leader of the human resistance.
Right.
The leader of the human resistance is John Connor. His mother is Sarah Connor. So the machines figure if we can kill Sarah Connor, then John will never have been born and we'll be able to win this war because apparently one man wins a war.
Well, I can tell you
how that happens.
Well, I can tell you one thing. The Terminator should have just found Kyle Reese and killed him.
Yeah.
That would have ended everything.
Yeah. It's a good thing that they didn't have any kind of files on who John's father was because, I think John and Sarah are probably the only ones in the world who know who who John's father is. Yeah. So, I mean, they didn't know much about Sarah either. They only knew where she lived.
Like what city she lived
in.
And
what her name was, So he had to kind of just go through the phone book and everything. But So anyways, we open up with a big old behemoth dude, time traveling, ends up being Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime.
Yep.
And he kills some punks, one of them played by Bill Paxton.
Yep.
And gets some clothes and starts his search for Sarah Connor. And then Kyle Reese comes out of the same thing, and he's, of course, all scarred up. Why did he drop? Why did he stay on the ground like the Terminator did?
Well, and if you look at every single one of the Terminator movies, they all were on the ground kneeling in some fashion.
But he came in midair and then just like dropped on the ground. I'm like, oh God, that hurts.
Maybe it was like a last ditch effort to send him back as quickly as possible or something. Because if we learn in the future movies that, you know, they ended up taking over one of these time.
Yeah,
you know, time machines or
but
whatever.
We don't pay attention to those.
No, but
we're doing a lot of assumptions.
Yeah,
here.
but they get one of the time machines, and so they probably were like, okay, well, we found out that, you know, the Terminators are going to send somebody back, but then, you know, so we need to send somebody back.
Yeah. Yeah, it might have been a thing where like the Terminators are just heavy metal, so sturdy that they kind of just sit in place because, as we saw, even though we don't pay attention to them, the some of the time travel shows them floating in air.
Yeah.
And everything. So I don't know, maybe the Terminators are too heavy and they just, you know, stay on the ground, whereas the time displacement going, you know, you're kind of in midair. I don't know, but I know that stunt sucked for the stuntman because it wasn't Michael Biehn, but they had to drop him with no clothes, no padding,
shoes,
nothing.
Yeah.
They just had to drop him a good like 10 feet to make it look realistic. Man, that must have hurt.
That must have.
But so anyways, he gets dressed. He's followed by some cops.
I got to say something about that, him getting dressed, because this one on my notes here is that he
wonder if
grabs
you're
a
gonna say
pair
the same
of
thing.
Nikes
Oh, okay. No,
out of the discount bin. You know, like, you know, you go to
What's he thinking? Should
well-
have grabbed Adidas, right?
Well,
No,
I'm just the fact that, like, you know, those are the bins that, like, nowadays, you know, you go to Walmart or something, or you go to one of these shoe things and they put the really cheap shoes in the discount
Yeah, but
bins.
Nike wasn't really popular.
I know,
until
but that's
Jordan.
How crazy is that he just goes in there and happens to just grab a pair of Nikes out of the bin, where nowadays, probably back then they were like $15 for their pair of Nikes. Nowadays they're like $100 or over for that pair of Nikes. Probably that same pair of Nikes is probably over $100 now.
That scene has always bugged me because people that wear shoes without socks, and my son tries to do it all the time. I'm like, that is nasty. That is disgusting. You're gonna stink. Your feet are gonna stink, and I'm gonna have to smell it. And
you're thinking that he's pretty much wearing those Nikes the entire film.
Yeah.
But if you know, one thing I want to say, you know, he goes through there. He goes to the athletic store or whatever you want to call it, you know, and getting away from the cops, and then, you know, he knows to look in phone books and stuff to look up Sarah Connor. But I mean, he got pretty accurate, right on the nose. Maybe he had some information from John.
Probably John gave him some information. It probably told him exactly where she lived, because remember that car he stole the next morning, it was parked right outside her apartment when she went to leave.
Yeah.
Well, it was there whenever, you know, she went out to have her burger and all that kind of stuff. So obviously he knew John, so he had a lot more information.
There's a lot of trench coats in this movie. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it was a trench coaty time back then.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, including him. I mean, it was very useful for Kyle Reese, because he had to saw off that shotgun and be able to slip it under that jacket, you know, and but if you watch a lot of these 80s movies, all of them wore trench coats, you know, especially ones that were trying to hide guns and such, you know?
Yeah. I like this opening because, you know, you see two violent guys come back, right? One is straight up killing people. The other dude, he rips this guy off. He's you know, roughing the cops up, you know, he's on the run and all this kind of stuff. So you're kind of like, well, you know, you can obviously guess who's the good guy, and, you know, now we know. But when it first came out, I think it portrayed it in a way where, like, you weren't sure if they were both trying to kill her.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Arnold was.
Yeah.
That was completely clear, you know, after he killed the first two Sarahs. But you weren't really sure what he was doing there and why he didn't just grab her right there and go.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting, and you could tell that he's a good soldier because, I mean, within the first 5 minutes, he's fully clothed, he has a shotgun, and he's got a trench coat, and he's walking down the street blending in when he just had a run-in with the cops, and now he's good to go. So good soldier, good tactics, good instincts, and all that kind of stuff. And then we get to, you know, when they're trying to find Sarah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if because he had said that he had to wait until the Terminator zeroed in on him because he didn't know who it was. You know, Terminators are meant to blend in, even though it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
But here's the thing, you know, she was probably $135 soaking wet, you know, but having to kidnap somebody like that, you know, in broad daylight, in a environment that you are not used to, you know, it would have made it extremely difficult because, you know, all it would have took is a cop to catch him and put him in jail, and then the whole movie would be over. You know what I mean? The whole story would be over. The Terminator would have got to Sarah Connor and killed him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, that's kind of going back to what I was going to talk about for the beginning of this is that, you know, I felt like Sarah Connor was a bad from the beginning. Like she wasn't no wuss, or, you know, she wasn't a big baby, or she wasn't like, you know, a damsel in distress. I think from the get-go start of her, you know, that we see as Sarah Connor, because she only cries once throughout the movie. And that's when she found out Ginger was killed, her roommate. And
she probably handled it a lot better than normal people would.
Right. And that to me, I think Sarah Connor, even before she went through all this, I think she was she was very worldly. Like she understood, she had street smarts, and she was also smart in general. You get to the club scene, she doesn't drink. You know, a lot of people would, you know, have a drink to settle their nerves or something like that, but she doesn't drink in the club scene. She's offered a drink, but she denies it because, you know, what she's going through. A lot of weaker willed people probably would have been like, give me a drink. I need a drink to kind of calm my nerves. You know what I mean? But she was smart and also super, super strong, I think, from the get-go.
I agree that she reacted and accepted what was going on pretty well, considering what was going on and the fact that she was the one being, you know, hunted.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think you know, because she's supposed to be 18, and by the time this movie got released, they said she was 19 because Linda Hamilton's obviously quite a bit older than 18 in this movie. Not quite a bit, but, you know, older. She's supposed to be an 18, 19-year-old girl. She has no drive in life.
But that's what I'm saying. Like if you look at it too, is that like her roommate, right? She knew her boyfriend was coming over. She was dressing up, putting makeup, you know, being real girly, and then Linda Hamilton comes out with some jeans and a sweatshirt, you know, or a sweater or whatever it was, you know, and not all dolled up or nothing else like that for her date, you know, and then she ends up, like I said, deciding to go get a hamburger, but she wasn't getting all dressed up like her roommate was for her date.
Yeah.
You know, that night. So, you know, in a way that I don't know, I thought she was just really smart, and she was kind of tough from the get-go, I felt like, you know.
I don't know. I feel like Kyle taught her a lot of things. She froze when the Terminator came up on her. When somebody fell on her again, she froze again. I think that James Cameron wanted her to be like that because she's not this savior, you know. She was never meant to, and she even says, she's like, do I look like some kind of a savior? Now, she did have natural instincts. I will give you that.
Yeah.
Because one, she accepted this pretty well. This is an insane story that Kyle's telling.
Yeah.
And she accepted it pretty much. Now, she had already seen the dude get shot and get back up and everything, wondering how he could do that. But there were some pretty good explanations given to her at the police station. But she still had doubts that the police were wrong and that Kyle was right. You know, so I think but, you know, later on, he's like, you know, that's a really good field dressing. And she's like, it's my first one. So she's got those natural instincts to be kind of like a
baddie,
an active go-getter, you know, somebody that can take care of business or whatever. But she's not there yet. She hasn't been jump-started yet. Now, by the end, yeah, definitely, because Kyle was useless from the moment they were driving in that truck and he went to throw that bomb and the Terminator shot and the bomb went off kind of right in his hands.
Yeah.
From then on, Kyle was basically useless. He was, you know, because it maybe caused a concussion or something like that. You know, he was like dragging the rest of the time, and she was kind of dragging him around the rest of the time and everything. So yeah, she had to take over there at the end, and she's the one that killed the Terminator in the end. Yeah. So I think you're right that she had those natural instincts in her, ready to go, but they had to be primed, you know, and that's what the movie was about, I feel. So yeah, I partially, yeah, I could see that, and I agree with some of that.
So I mean, we get there, and we go to Club Noir,
Tech Noir,
Tech Noir,
which is a good description of what this movie is, because it's tech as far as computers and robots and everything, and noir because it's like a cat and mouse type of story.
Yeah, detective type, investigative, whatever.
And that club was made just for the movie, and it was so realistic that they actually had people start to line up outside trying to get into the club, the new club that was just built there. So,
well, just the fact that she thought she hid, she knew she was being chased by Kyle Reese, or followed by Kyle Reese, that mind you, and then they get in the club, and he kind of plays it a little cool at first, like he pretends like when he's walking behind her or whatever that
he's just looking ahead.
Yeah, he keeps going. So she's still smart enough to know that,
even though when she goes in there, he's like, you could tell he's like really looking in there.
Yeah,
but that could be anybody just looking and see what's going on.
Right. And at first, she's kind of like, he might not be following me now, but somebody's definitely following me, and they get to this
by.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, they go to Arnold goes to Ginger's, to their apartment and kills the boyfriend and Ginger, and basically kind of figures out she's at this club. And then he goes to the club.
I bet he killed Ginger and was like, yes, my mission is complete. And then he heard Sarah on the answering machine. He quickly looked over like, damn it.
Yeah.
Thought I had her.
But so he goes to the club, and, you got Kyle Reese, Sarah Connor, and then you have the Terminator. The Terminator shows up, basically kind of spots her almost instantly.
I like how she spots Kyle at the bar. Like it's real slow motion. She looks, and she's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And looks, and he like slowly looks over to her.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you didn't even see him come in.
No.
So that's how like a stealthy soldier he is.
Yeah.
Like he walked by, and then he probably went around to the back,
Yeah.
found somebody to sneak in, and then just walked up to the bar real casually and stuff.
So they, Arnold's
like a special ops soldier.
Right. So you get Arnold, and he starts popping off, and then Kyle Reese is basically like, okay, now I got to make my move. It's too late to do anything else.
I got to pop off too.
So he starts popping off. Right? Kyle Reese starts popping off, and
he took the less safe route for whatever reason.
You see Sarah Connor in front of. Did you see when that girl that was running behind Sarah Connor? Right when Arnold was like, I don't care, or Terminator was like, I don't care. I'm just going to shoot everybody.
Yeah.
And he goes to shoot Sarah Connor, but that girl like hits her in the back. And you don't see any like blood, or you don't see any like explosion or anything. She just kind of falls forward.
Really? I thought I saw a squib come out.
I don't remember seeing one because I was looking for it, and she just kind of falls forward and then knocks Sarah Connor on the ground, and then so Sarah Connor, gets up. Well, Kyle
and that girl that fell on her was maybe like 100 pounds. Like
if that
shows you how weak Sarah was at this point. She couldn't even get out from under this person
physically. Okay, I'll give you that. but the fact that Kyle Reese drops a couple rounds into the Terminator, which if we watch any of the other movies, it doesn't even make the Terminator move. But for some reason, Kyle Reese knew exactly where to shoot him or something. Knocks the Terminator on the ground.
Yeah, well,
and runs over there to pick up.
Well, he had a shotgun.
Yeah, but
because the T-1000 only ever had a pistol, pew 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 pew, and so it didn't do anything to Arnold, but the shotgun did.
Yeah, well, his little weapons then made his hands into
his knivey hands.
But so Kyle goes and picks up basically Sarah Connor, runs her out to a basically a what is it, just car on the side of the street,
in the back alley.
Yeah, hot wires it like in a weird way too. If you notice, like he pops off the ignition.
No, that was when they were in the car park.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
this one was the car that he had already stolen, so it was ready to go, and that's whenever the Terminator got on fire and burned his eyebrows off for the rest of the movie.
Which I think it kind of was a horrible idea. They should have not done that.
I like it because at the beginning it's showing that you don't know who he is. You just know he's a tough guy because you haven't seen that he's a Terminator yet. For all you know, he's just some kind of assassin. He's obviously come back in time, but he's some kind of assassin and everything, very strong. But then once you find out, and once Kyle's like,
all right, listen, the Terminator's an infiltration unit, part man, part machine. Underneath, it's a hyperalloy combat chassis, microprocessor controlled, fully armored, very tough. But outside, it's living human tissue. Flesh, skin, hair, blood, grown for the cyborgs.
Look, Reese, I don't know what you want.
Pay attention! I gotta ditch this car. The 600 series had rubber skin. We spotted them easy. But these are new. They look human. Sweat, bad breath, everything. Very hard to spot. I had to wait till he moved on you before I could zero him.
Look, I am not stupid, you know. They cannot make things like that yet.
Not yet. Not for about 40 years.
Are you saying it's from the future?
One possible future. From your point of view, I don't know tech stuff.
Then you're from the future too, is that right?
Right.
Right.
Then he starts to degrade.
Yeah.
And you could tell the skin has died because it starts looking more rubbery and white and everything like that. So I like that because it shows the degradation into becoming the machine and
Yeah,
everything.
but you would think with that much fire, it would have burned all the hair on top of his head. But then I think he would have looked just ridiculous.
Not Arnold's pretty hair. He can't do that.
Yeah. So, but anyways, they get in the car and they're driving around, and he's chasing them. And what did he get into? He got into
He got into the cop car.
the cop car. That's right. Yeah. So he's chasing him with the cop car, and so they end up driving through, shooting at each other, and then you could see that.
This is my favorite part of the movie, by the way.
Really?
It's because all the lore is laid out. This is Kyle's exposition scene.
Yeah.
Now, normally, exposition, just spoken, telling you the story, is a bad thing. It's like writing 101. You show, you don't tell. You should be showing with the movie visually instead of having an actor just saying, well, here's what happened, blah, 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 blah. But obviously, he has to tell her what's going on so it works. And everything he's saying is absolutely nuts, and not one of us would believe him. Even back then, we wouldn't believe him.
Yeah.
But she does, and it's because one, Kyle, is so earnest about what he's saying, so convincing. Two, she's seen this guy get up from shotgun.
She's literally
shots.
getting chased by a Terminator.
But it could have been something that was staged by Kyle, and this was maybe his friend or whatever that just acted like that because they're crazy people.
But in the moment,
more than likely, no. Yeah, in the moment, you're doing that, and so I just think it's really, and Michael Bihn's delivery of everything, he is so into it because you could deliver these lines, and it sounds terrible. It's like, oh, this is cheesy. Who would believe this or whatever? But the way he delivers it, it's this guy that has been in the midst of battle and he knows how to yell talk.
Cyborgs don't feel pain. I do. Don't do that again.
Just let me go.
Listen and understand that Terminator is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
Really gets into it. So I just like it because it tells basically the whole lore. Once they get parked, he talks about, there was one man who taught us to smash these machines, and his name was Connor. John Connor, your son, your unborn son. And so, I mean, it lays out the whole lore and everything. There are other cool parts in the movie. I just really like that because it's Sarah Connor's first introduction to her destiny.
Yeah.
And to her son's destiny.
And the fact that, I thought
that first car ride.
Right. And at first, I was like, why is he telling her model numbers of these Terminators? And I wrote a note on that.
That's all he needs. That's all he knows.
Right. And it seemed like telling her model numbers, things like that, was a little bit more confusing. But then you find out at the very end of this film why he was getting in such detail of telling her everything about the future and everything about Terminators, numbers, serial numbers. Because then she took that knowledge and basically, recorded all of it for John so that he would have a leg up, from that point on when he was born to Judgment Day.
And even though we're not talking about this, but we had talked about Terminator Salvation.
Yeah.
And you see Christian Bale's John listening to those tapes the whole movie.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is he in a way, told her all that detail, I think, so that she could relay it to John, early on. So that's why John was the savior, because I guarantee if he didn't tell her all this stuff, I don't think John would have been at that place in the future.
Maybe not, but I wonder what was going through Kyle's head when he came back, because obviously he's grown up just knowing the war. So when he first came back, it had to have thrown him for a loop to see city buildings standing so high and all that, because they had all been wiped out by the time he was born and old enough to see it. So I wonder what his plan was, to like somehow kill the Terminator and then just wait out until Judgment Day. Maybe he was planning on being there to help raise or whatever, because
It's a one-way trip.
and he said it was a one-way trip. Nobody goes back. I still think, I am a believer that he went to his grave still not knowing he was John's father.
No, I knew that
because they did hook up.
Yeah.
And it might have maybe crossed his mind, like, wait a minute, we're hooking up right now. Am I? You know, that type of thing. Are we going to be together? And if we are going to be together, am I the father or whatever? Yeah. But, you know,
they talked about war-torn that he wasn't even probably thinking about that.
And not only that, he was a virgin.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, this was a whole new experience. He probably wasn't thinking about all that. But, and then right after, as they're getting dressed, Terminator shows up, and then it's on to your death type of thing. So
Did you
I
notice
don't think
the dog at the hotel is the same dog at the end of the movie. If the dog that warns them to get out of the hotel, it's a German Shepherd, and at the very end of the movie, I always wondered,
you know whose dog that is?
James Cameron, probably.
And do you know what the dog's name is?
What?
Wolfie. You remember T2 when he's like,
Wolfie!
What's the dog's name? Max.
Barking.
Oh, what's wrong with Wolfie?
Yeah.
So that's why they used Wolfie, because that was his name.
But if you notice at the hotel, there was just a stray dog sitting out in front of them.
I thought it was like the hotel manager's dog that was just chilling.
Right. But if you look at it, it's the same exact dog that's sitting next to her, and in the famous picture that everybody in all the Terminators seem to have.
Emilia Clarke repeated and all that. Yeah.
But that same dog, and I'm kind of wondering if we look at the Emilia Clarke one, because doesn't she have a dog too?
It's in there. She has this weird looking wig and all that. Yeah, it does show Emilia Clarke as the Sarah in that picture.
But I'm saying the dog though. I'm wondering if it's the same.
It's a
type
German
of dog.
Shepherd. Yeah.
So isn't that kind of cool that if you look at the dog in front of the hotel, it's the same dog at the end of the movie.
I didn't know. I actually didn't pick up on that. I wonder if it's the same looking dog, or if it is actually. I mean, obviously in the movie they probably used the same dog because it was cheaper. But I wonder if in the movie, if she like somehow went back to the motel and got the dog or something.
If it wasn't for that dog, they wouldn't have got out in time. That dog started barking when the Terminator started coming around.
And did you see when they walked up, Kyle like kind of petted the dog, and I think he was like, okay, this dog's here, I feel safe here, because. And did you know when they walked up and asked for a room, the voice of the person inside, that's James Cameron as well.
Oh really?
Yeah.
But that's why I was like I did not notice that at first. I was like, you know, because you see in the end of the movie and you're like, well, so she just picked up a dog, just randomly have a dog right next to her in that famous picture. And I was like, wait, that is a dog in that famous picture from the Terminators. And I said, you know, and then I was like, wait a minute, that's the same exact dog that warned them to escape because it would all have been over. If that dog didn't bark, you know, the Terminator wasn't being loud. He was coming around the corner. You know, he was asking, you know, at the front desk or whatever, but he was coming around the corner.
He shows up and he's like, fucking dog.
Yeah. But I kind of feel like it was an homage to the dog to put him at the end of the film, like saying that he's fine and dandy and then she adopted him, took care of him or whatever.
Now, knowing that, I'm assuming that the Terminator knew that Kyle was from the future as well.
Oh, yeah. Had to have.
You know, because it was probably just a deduction. There's no proof, maybe, or maybe, I don't know. But either way, he had to assume, and knowing that, I don't know why the Terminator wouldn't have killed that dog, like, immediately. Pulling up, seeing the dog, kill it. You know, even with, like, one with a silencer. I mean, that might still have been heard, but anyway.
You almost kind of think if Kyle Reese might have recognized that dog in that picture, too, and was saying, this looks a lot like that dog.
Yeah.
You know?
The picture is one of the coolest things about the story, and it's the things that I love about storytelling. And it's because, you know, you see the picture that he has in a flashback, in a dream that he has. And it's a picture of Sarah with this dog, and she's sitting in a Jeep and everything. And then afterwards he talks about it. He's like, you know, John gave me a picture of you. And I never knew why he gave it to me.
I mean, you know, you're like, here, one of my soldiers. I mean, you might be one of my top soldiers, but I'm going to give you a picture of my mother.
He is a soldier through and through. He doesn't think past what the mission is. That's like a true soldier, because now you could say, well, he's just an idiot for not putting that together.
Yeah.
But I mean, you would think that maybe John would tell me I'm his father or whatever, and that I'd have to deal with that. Maybe John didn't tell him just in case he didn't want to go back or whatever. But,
well, no, I think John didn't tell him because it would have changed some things in the story. I feel like it would have pushed things a little bit too far for Sarah Connor.
He had to let it develop naturally.
Yes,
because the same thing happened with Terminator 2 and the T-800 that came back with to protect John. There were some things that I have some questions about that I'll ask next episode. But same thing. Yeah. So he had to. But what I like about that picture is that she gave it to him and he didn't think anything about it. But he always looked at this picture and then he eventually fell in love with her.
Well, you saw when that picture was on fire, he was just broken. He was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know whether or not to grab it out of the fire. It's already burned. But we got Terminators here.
I like that they show that it burned too because it made him want to go back even more because he wanted to see her face again.
Yeah.
And he didn't have anything else to see her face anymore because she was probably dead by the time he got that picture or whatever. But not only that, but he told her, he goes, you were in this picture and you had this look of sadness in you. I don't know why you were sad. He goes, you were young like you are now. And he's like, but I always wondered what you were thinking about.
Yeah.
And what made you so sad. And you see in that moment, she's on the thing. She goes,
Should I tell you about your father? Boy, that's a tough one. Will it affect your decision to send him here, knowing that he is your father? If you don't send Kyle, you can never be. God, a person could go crazy thinking about this. I suppose I will tell you. I owe him that. Maybe it'll help if you know that in the few hours that we had together, we loved a lifetime's worth.
I owe it to Kyle to tell you about him and who he was.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard on you to now have that information and have to send him back in time. But I owe it to Kyle to tell his son, who he was. And as she's saying that kid takes the picture.
Yeah.
And, as she's thinking about that, so the sadness when he's like, I always wonder what you were thinking about and what you were so sad about, she was thinking about him.
Yeah.
And, just the stuff that comes full circle like that, I just love. That's the stuff that chokes me up. That's the stuff that gives me goosebumps and gets me chills about any kind of storytelling, whether it's a movie, a book, a TV show. Yeah. When you have something like that that's set up and you pay it off at the end, and it's just like this cool little moment.
The thing that bothered me, and this is like the main thing that's bothered me about time travel in this movie in particular.
Now, don't get too far into it because we don't want to confuse ourselves.
No, I'm just saying. Well, it's kind of just weird way of thinking. Okay, Kyle's from the future. He was not even born yet, technically, in the time that he came back to impregnate Sarah Connor, who John Connor technically is older than he is.
He wasn't even born yet in Terminator 2.
I know.
Because John even said to the Terminator, he's not even born yet.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, but how confusing, if you think about it, it's like, okay, Kyle Reese is John's father with Sarah Connor, who happens to be, 40 years older than Kyle Reese. Let's see, 40 years older than Kyle Reese, technically speaking. John Connor is technically around probably 30 years to 20 years.
Something like that.
Or probably about 30 years older than Kyle Reese, but Kyle Reese is his father.
Yeah, and it doesn't really say his age, but if she's 18,
well, he
19...
he said the Terminators were created 40 years from that point, from 1984. It said the Terminator.
It was 2024.
Yeah, he said the Terminators were created 40 years from now.
But Judgment Day was 97.
Yeah,
and Kyle was born after that, and I think it was right after that.
Yeah,
is because he grew up in the wasteland or whatever,
yeah.
And he'd have to. If this is 2029, 1997, let's say he was born in 1998.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2008, 18. So he's about 31.
Yeah.
If he was born in 98, at least 31. That's as old as he can be.
Yeah.
So He's 30, but I honestly think he's probably more like 25, 26.
Yeah.
And she's 18, 19
Yeah.
or whatever. So he'll never be older than that.
No.
And I don't know. It's just, I think
It's very confusing. If you really, really start to think about it, you're like, wait a minute. Okay, so he's John's father, but he's
that's
actually
why-
younger than John by
That's why
30
John
years.
is an aberration.
Yeah.
Because if this war had never happened, John would never exist.
Yeah.
And John was the only one that could beat the war. It's like one of these like prophecies, like Harry Potter, like only one can win or
Yeah.
whatever it is. But it's only in that circumstance. John doesn't exist without that circumstance.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's just it's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy to think about.
So we got to reverse just a little bit to my favorite scene of the film.
Okay. What's your favorite scene?
The police station.
Oh.
When Arnold comes back, this is the first time he says, I'll be back. In any of these movies, he goes up to the very front of the cop and he says, oh, you know, is Sarah Connor here?
I'm a friend of Sarah Connor. Can I see her, please?
I'm a friend of Sarah Connor. I was told that she's here. Could I see her, please?
No, can't see her. She's making a statement.
Where is she?
Look, it may take a while. You want to wait? There's a bench over there.
I'll be back.
That's the first time he says that scene to it. Just some random cop.
And the
random
original
character.
line was supposed to be, I'll come back.
Yeah.
Which it's just terrible.
Thank God.
I'll come back.
Yeah, isn't that grammatically incorrect? I'll come back. Because you're saying come and then back.
Yeah, but then you'll say, I'll be.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Man, I'm usually pretty good with grammar and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I don't know what's... I don't know.
But the fact that then he decides to draw, I think this is one of the most famous scenes from all the Terminator films. Not saying the famous scene, because I mean, you know, the being chased by the 18-wheeler and you know John Connor and the Terminator in the part 2, you know, when they're on the motorcycle, that's a pretty famous scene too. But I think this is one of the most famous scenes because in some of the later movies they actually come back to this scene in particular.
Well, it's a good representation of how dangerous the Terminators were because in the future, you know, you have a ragtag bunch of people that haven't eaten in maybe days, haven't drank water in a day or two.
Yeah.
They're tired. They're all this kind of stuff. Now they have better weapons to combat the Terminator, but
They're
you know,
still taking out Terminators with.
they're hardcore fighters, yeah, but they're kind of wasted, you know, and it's like a hard battle. Whereas these are seasoned cops now; they haven't been through a war and everything, but they got a lot of weapons and all that.
You see, they didn't pull out their
Stupid.
their issued pistols, their official issue pistols.
Well,
they're pulling out.
I'd be glad that if I didn't, because they don't. Not that they knew this, but it doesn't have much effect on the Terminator.
But so they're pulling out Uzis and you know all heavy machinery, and they are blasting the Terminator. But he shoots him down. He knocks him down with a shotgun.
First of all, how lucky of a day is Dr. Silberman having?
He passes right
he
by the
checks his
Terminator as he
beeper.
walks in.
Terminator comes in, puts his beeper back down, and walks out. And then you don't see him until the next
But
movie.
he gets another chance at it in part 2.
And then he sees that, and then he's in part 3 again as well.
Yeah.
But anyways.
But the fact that because they go back to that cop scene, you know, they show video of the cop scene, you know. And,
Well, they show the pictures. You're
yeah,
talking
and
about
of the Terminator.
2? Yeah.
Well, yeah, they show the pictures because
Comparing it to the
yeah.
mall.
And so
I agree. I think it's a really great scene because, like I was saying, he said we got 30 cops in this building, and it's like
that don't
so?
mean a thing.
Because one Terminator cleared out that entire building. There wasn't one left.
How did Kyle Reese get out of there? He's handcuffed and he's in a locked room.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure he's been through some shit. You
True.
know, I think he was a prisoner. Well, I think that gets into later movies or whatever.
But it's
there's a good chance that he was at one time a prisoner and broke out of Terminator camps. I think he can get out of.
Yeah, he gets out of cuffs and he gets out of a locked police interrogation room.
I think what he did was waited until he knew the Terminator was going to come.
Oh, yeah.
And so he probably was like either trying to pick a lock or getting ready. And as soon as he knew that they were distracted, he knew exactly what to do to get out of that situation. But he waited because he knew if he tried to get out of it then, they just lock him up even more, and then he'd be screwed.
Well, and then you get Lance Henriksen. He thinks he's going to do any better than his partner.
Who just got shot.
Instead of saying, oh, you know, checking on his partner's like dying. I mean, he's wheezing. Yeah, and he comes around with a bigger gun, but he kind of looked like a bad butt with that gun, you know. I mean, coming around that corner, you know, coming out of that room when his partner's just kind of sitting down there. Personally, I would have think that, you know, yeah, you're not going to stop the Terminator. I'd worry more about my partner, you know, because
but you don't know that.
Shot. Yeah,
it's just some guy. Remember, they don't believe that story.
Yeah.
But when he shows up and they've seen this guy get shot and he's taking down all these cops and everything. And yeah, they said the Kevlar thing, but do you think that there was any time when they were like,
shoot him in the face?
No, or they were like, Kyle might have a point.
Yeah.
maybe we should let him out of his cuffs.
Yeah, a little bit too late there for them. But
yeah, he died pretty quickly. Both those cops died pretty quickly after.
You got to admit that these were the cops in this film were classic 80s cops. You know what I mean? I mean that cop car, those cop cars they were driving around. That was my very first car when I was in New Mexico. That was my very
white one
Dodge
that you rolled
Diplomat
into the ditch.
Yeah, no, I spun it into a ditch.
That's what I meant.
Dodge Diplomat, you know, and those were the classic, you know, 80s type cop cars. The cops dressed, you know, in cheap suits, you know, drinking coffee on the regular, you know, always everybody's drinking coffee, and you know this tough guy. You know, I mean, I know Lethal Weapon was kind of in the 90s, you know, but I'm saying like, well, the first one was in 89 or wasn't it late 80s?
No, the second one was in the late 80s, so the first one might have been like 86.
So it was kind of like that setup, you know, that type of cop, you know, they just take no prisoners, take no guff from anybody.
Yeah,
you know,
for this police station be an LA police station.
Yeah.
The one in Lethal Weapon was a lot more believable as a police because that thing was huge, and this place seemed like a little small town police station.
Yeah.
So, but they had arrested him coming down the streets in downtown LA. So
he was about to go out with a blaze of glory.
Yeah, I just realized why was that police station so small? I mean, obviously for the movie,
for the filming, yeah,
you had to have you couldn't have a Terminator take out a building of like 200 people. But the fact that it was, I don't know, that maybe that's kind of a little tweak there. That
Let me ask you a question. Do you think they could have filmed this movie during the daytime? I mean, they did a little bit, you know, at the hotel scene and stuff like that, but that was kind of like when you know, they were sleeping and everything else like that. But that was like the calm period of the movie.
I think it makes more sense because Kyle even mentions you don't go out during the day; it's too dangerous. Yeah. You can move around a little bit at nighttime, and that was in the future. And the Terminator's here, so they obviously operate better at nighttime, or you know, in the daytime. Maybe I don't know. I think
because you move to the second one, and there is a lot of day scenes. You know,
yeah, but that's because the Terminator doesn't have to worry about hiding in the. But as Kyle Reese, he didn't have much, so he works better at nighttime. It's harder for the Terminator to track him, maybe, or whatever, to track them, or whatever it may be. But the behind the scenes reason for that is because they had a very low budget. And a lot of this was the guerrilla filmmaking that I was talking about earlier. They didn't have permits.
Yeah.
They shot a lot of stuff that they weren't supposed to shoot. Now, like the truck explosion, a few other things, like some car chases and stuff, that was okay. But like Arnold breaking out the window with his fist, that was the very last thing shot for the movie, and they didn't have a permit. They just quickly went to this thing, spent a couple hours shooting it, good to go. That last shot of her driving off into the desert as the credits roll, that whole thing at the gas station, they were stopped by cops who asked them for permits, and they said that they were UCLA students just filming a film because you don't need a permit if you're a college student. It's not an actual production you're making money off of and everything. So they had to do a lot of lying and stuff like that. Now, obviously, you had a much bigger budget, but
maybe that's why
I like that it takes place at night.
I do too, but you know, maybe that's why Kyle didn't try to pursue Sarah Connor until it got dark.
Well, yeah, but he was there for he got there at nighttime, and then he was there for a whole day. And then I think he was, like he said, he was just following because the original premise of a Terminator is it's supposed to be an average everyday man.
Yeah.
And that's why like they were looking at certain people for the Terminator. But until Arnold came, he really didn't put that together. He was like, well, you know what? This is a big machine. It would probably be hard to kind of stand out. Yeah. You know, so they're still infiltrators, but, you know, they're big dudes and everything. So
and I got to say, Lyndall Hamilton is a horrible crier. She's a horrible crier. Like, it's not believable at all. She's crying, you know, when she found out about Ginger dying, you know, getting killed and everything. And Ginger! Yeah, but it was just, she is a horrible crier. Like, she's one of these actresses that cannot cry properly.
She broke her ankle right before this movie started filming. So
Really?
all of that running they did at the end, they had to completely switch the schedule up. So that's why she has a slight bit of a limp.
Yeah.
They all have limps. Kyle has a limp at the end. The Terminator.
Well, he just got through being shot, so
yeah,
you know.
And yeah, the Terminator had a limp, but that was because it moved funny, and it didn't really move naturally. So Cameron wrote in a little part there whenever he got out of the truck explosion. Yeah. That's why the Terminator would limp along there.
Well, and Arnold was jacked, so he can't walk like a normal pure person being that jacked anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I just thought, the only thing is I like we were talking about this off camera, I should say, but I felt like the last part was kind of rushed in a way. When they're driving basically to this factory. And this
it wasn't as
Metalworks factory.
It wasn't as executed well as Terminator 2, but it had a lot of the same elements, and including a car crash that crashes. They get in new vehicles and it starts up again.
Yeah,
it's the same thing that happened in Terminator 2.
Yeah, and the fact that like I kind of felt like Kyle kind of got taken out pretty early near the end there.
I think they needed to, because you needed to see that Sarah had made a change, and that there was signs of the warrior badass that would eventually train the leader of mankind. Now, she didn't do a lot, but she was, I think, the most important thing, and a lot of these Terminators, is that the bad guy Terminator is usually unbeatable, so it's really just about staying alive. It's not really about fighting, it's staying alive.
Yeah.
And she proved that she was good at that. And the final chase through the factory, and I wonder if that was Cyberdyne. If that factory was like a company called Cyberdyne, and they found that crushed thing and hid it, and then in the next movie, that's what Cyberdyne's become. They threw all of their stuff behind this robot or something. I don't know. It might have been. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, I mean, and just before they even got out of the car in the factory, Kyle Reese was done. I mean, she was literally carrying him.
Yeah, as soon as when they were running away in the truck and he went to throw that last bomb, the Terminator hit the truck, and I think something ricocheted, and it made it to where he dropped the bomb like right below him, and it kind of blew up in his face. He was kind of concussed for a while, and his eyes were open, but he looked loopy and stuff. So I think the bomb had kind of messed him up pretty much until his death. Yeah,
because when he put the bomb inside the Terminator, I don't know how he got away. I mean, obviously he didn't, because that's where he died. But he
didn't have more damage.
Yeah, and he kind of rolled away. So there's no way he got far enough away that he didn't really. He should have been just kind of blown up. His face should have been blown up or something. I don't know.
You got to have something for her to look at,
I guess.
And say, no, Kyle.
Yeah,
but we totally skipped the most naughty part of the movie.
Yeah,
so first of all, they're in a cave, and she gets more about John and the dogs and how it is back then and everything. She goes, I don't want this future. I'm not a warrior, all that kind of stuff. And right before, he's like, that's a good field dressing, and she had never done one before. They leave, and as they're coming out of the cave that they spent the night in, there's a mist that's actually bug spray.
Oh God!
That the city had done or whatever, and they quickly filmed that as the backdrop to make it look kind of give it some ambiance and everything. But I'm like, man, that much, I wouldn't want to walk into that. But anyway, so they go to a hotel, and this is when he's like, he's all business. Yeah. He's still all business because he's in love with her, but he doesn't know what to do. He's a soldier. There's no time for courting. There's no time for fun and games. You're on high alert, action, killing or be killed ever since birth for him. Yeah. So whenever they have some downtime, she's trying to be flirty and everything, and because she's obviously started to feel for this guy, and he's not about it. They get into
even pulls away.
Yeah, he goes into the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. She's like, so what do we do? He's like, well, I'm going to go out for supplies. I'll be right back. And she's like, okay. And he gives her a gun. Here. Yeah. And then he leaves. And she's like, so what's for dinner? You know, he comes back and he dumps out mothballs and a bunch of stuff to make plastique.
Yeah.
And she's like, what are we making? And he's like, plastic, you know, it's basically nitroglycerin, just a little bit more stable. I learned to make it as a kid. You know, and he's teaching her.
Yeah.
He's now teaching her how to make the bombs and how to cut the fuses and basically just making pipe bombs. But and then, you know, it's a really cool scene, I thought, right before, you know, they get down to business in creating John.
Yeah.
It was really cool how, you know.
Because he even pulls back from it at first because he's like, wait, we don't got time for this.
Because she's asking a stupid question like, were there any other girls that, you know, you got to imagine after all he's told you, do you really think there's any time for that?
No.
You know, obviously, I'm sure people are still having kids. Maybe, I don't know. I think it'd be a stupid idea because you wouldn't want babies screaming.
Yeah, but you see kids in the future. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, they're talking about that, and you know, she's like, "Do you have anybody?" And he kind of like almost looks at her like, "Are you kidding me? Have you not realized what I've done?" He goes, "I come across time for you, Sarah." And he told her about the picture and all that. I memorized every line in your face. I memorized every part of you. I knew who you were immediately when I saw you.
So you feel nothing?
John Connor gave me a picture of you once. I didn't know why at the time. It's very old. Torn. Faded. You were young like you are now. You seemed just a little sad. I used to always wonder what you were thinking at that moment. I memorized every line, every curve. I came across time for you, Sarah. I love you. I always have.
Yeah, so in a way, he did have somebody. It was her, but the image and the
he had her for longer than she had him.
Yeah. He had her as an image and almost as an idol in a way.
Yeah.
You know, something that looked up to her because, you know, I'm sure John told everybody that the reason she learned all this or he learned everything and how to do everything was from his mother.
Yeah.
And who basically learned it.
Yeah, he said like a chance. He goes, why would you come across time? It was a chance to meet the legend.
Yeah,
he called her the legend.
But in all reality, he's the one that created the legend. You know,
yeah, like he trained the legend that trained the savior. You know,
that trained him,
and it's a big, crazy, confusing,
this is why the
mind warping loop and everything. But it's cool because, you know, it's a moment of levity. It shows that he's been in love with her that long, and there maybe even are traces of when they're having that conversation, him thinking, this is why John gave me the picture.
Yeah.
You know, realizing that John would know if they hooked up.
Yeah.
Probably.
And this is all assumptions by us, of course. You know, I mean, this could not have anything to do with what was in Cameron's mind when he wrote it,
and you know, you got other movies that try to retcon a bunch of stuff or just straight up change stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's all up in the air. But they finally go there. They blow up the T-800. Kyle dies.
I thought it was T-101.
It's the model T-101, but it's a T-800.
Okay.
It's model 101 of whatever the T-800 is.
Yeah.
But it's he gets blown up. Kyle dies. There's still half a torso left of the Terminator. It starts crawling after, and that's that nightmare that James Cameron has is a torso, a robot torso with that same exact face. Crawling.
All she would have had to do was step over him.
Yeah, but she had to have a leg injury.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
but even then, like if she could have just stepped over him, that Terminator probably couldn't have turned around.
It could have though. All it needs to do is get its hand on you. Yeah. If it can get its hand on you and control you, it can break bones, pull you towards it, and just crack your neck.
And at this point, you know, it consists of the torso, the head, and one arm. Because the other arm got cut off or blown off or something. I think it got blown up by Reese when he put that bomb in her because all it was left was the torso, one arm, and the
dragging
head.
himself, and they were going. But yeah, so she crawls through a press, which I don't know if I'd feel comfortable crawling through that.
No.
Would you?
No.
Because she had already pressed the button. So in my mind, I would have been like, wait, did I set that on where it'll press like every few minutes, or is that off now? I'm like, I don't know if I want to go through this thing because it might crush me or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of one of those little things that kind of creep you out. But she manages to shut the cage, and he tries to choke her, and then she says,
You're a terminated fucker.
and
one of the worst ending lines or the I got you lines. I hate that.
You hate it?
I hated it.
That's
I
like
hated
that.
it.
I mean, that shows. First of all, before when they were when they were in the truck that was upside down, she's like, "Move it, Reese, on your feet, soldier." You started to see the Sarah from part 2 that we eventually see.
Yeah,
you start to see the beginnings of that, and then as they're going through the factory, she makes him get up on his feet again and all this kind of stuff.
But I think, I mean, if she would have just said you're terminated, I would have been cool with it. But like, throughout the movie, she wasn't the type of person that just, and I know that she was changing, stuff like that, but it just did not fit. That last word did not fit the ending. If they would have left that out, I would have been like, okay, you're terminated. I get it. I like it. But you're terminated, effort. It's like, yeah, you say that to like a human being, but to a robot, it's like, okay. I just kind of felt like it was.
I thought it was
a little bit extra at that.
I thought it was a good slam in the face because he's a Terminator, and she's like, "You're terminated." It was like her one badass line. It could be like, well, you didn't have to say it like that, or you're terminated. Put a mother in front of that or something.
Yeah, but
like
nobody
that,
says effort. I mean, some people do, but you just you're terminated.
I bet it was something in the. I bet it was like an '80s thing. You know how like you say cuss words or whatever, but they're more popular. I don't know.
I'm not saying I didn't like the whole thing. I just didn't like at the end. It just didn't seem like it fit with it because she wasn't going through cussing throughout the whole movie, and there wasn't a lot of swear words throughout the whole movie except from the cops, obviously. But
yeah, and she said a couple, but not many.
But not it just seemed kind of a little out of character to say that last part, or it was just too much. I think it was like, I don't know. I just didn't like the last word. It's not so much because I don't like swearing a lot, but it's just the effort at the end just didn't seem like it fit with the statement.
Yeah. I like how she's learning Spanish at the end because we know she goes into Mexico and
basically
probably
friends.
has John there.
Yeah, becomes friends with
Enrique from the second one.
Yeah.
So, but it's cool to see her like not know much, but she's like would you see this imagery nowadays? She's got a Prego belly and a gun sitting on her lap and everything.
With one of those, what do they call them? The workout bands around her head. I don't know.
Sweatband.
Sweatband. There we go.
Yeah.
But and
it's like that image with the pregnant belly and the gun right by it.
Yeah.
Like John's always had a gun near him. You know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
He's always been exposed to violence,
exactly,
and everything. So he had no hope. But I like this movie, and I like the lore here because, like I said, it's one of those things where in any other time travel movies, somebody just exists, right? But the only reason John exists is because of the time travel.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the time travel in the war, which they're trying to avoid, then he wouldn't exist.
Okay.
So does he have to take existing, sacrificing mankind, basically?
Mm-hmm.
Or would he rather not exist and maybe avoid this whole thing? I mean, obviously he would want this whole thing avoided. That's something next movie.
He looks at it more or less like, I think that what his mother and, technically his father went through for him to live. Like he can't go back on that and look at it like, oh, I'm not really important, or I'm not this. His mother's in a crazy home at that point, but I feel like it was all led up to that to encourage him in a way. But him at his age, we'll get into it more in the next one.
Yeah, because I liked it because she was a teenager, but she didn't really seem to have any kind of interest in having kids, starting a family, all that kind of stuff. So the fact that by the end of these 2 days she's pregnant, ready to go, her life has changed forever.
Yeah, I can't believe she got 6 months pregnant in 2 days. That's kind of crazy.
I'm pretty sure that was a flash forward.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering if she darted straight to Mexico at that point. Because, she really, it didn't seem like she she even talked about family, you know, because I mean, we find out in part 2, you know, with John, he's with a foster family, you know, so she obviously didn't have any kind of connection left after her roommate died. She didn't have a boyfriend or nothing else like that. You know, I mean, basically her whole world for a whole 6 hours became Kyle Reese, therefore John Connor afterwards, you know, so it was like she probably just picked up, went straight to Mexico. You know, I mean, there was no picking up things from her house or whatever else like that. You know, you kind of feel like she just headed straight to Mexico after that because she had no connection left besides what was growing inside her.
Who would you say is the most tragic character of this lore?
Bill Paxton.
Because he didn't get more screen time.
Exactly.
And saying,
and he just,
oh man, it's over, man. Game over. Game over, man.
Not only did he get just bodied by Arnold, but like Arnold
all the way back.
Like all the way back.
Thrown all the way back.
And he was, you know, it was inferred that he was dead, you know,
well, yeah, I'm
from
sure
a
they
throw.
were all dead.
Yeah.
And what's his dude? And Shao Kahn got basically his insides.
Boom.
He probably reached and grabbed his spine from the front and pulled it out or something, but.
Yeah. Well, the most tragic, I'd have to say, would have to probably be, I mean.
You want me to tell you what I think?
Kyle Reese, in my opinion. Yeah.
I think it is because, think about it. He never knew the world as we know it. He's only known destruction.
Yeah.
And in the 2 days that he got to have a reprieve from that, he was still going through everything he went.
Yeah.
The woman that he was in love with for probably years.
Yeah.
That he never got to meet. When he finally got to meet her, he got 2 days with her, but only a few hours in which they had feelings for each other.
Yeah.
You know, and then he died. And not only did he die, but he died not meeting his, not getting to, first of all, not getting to meet his son.
Which we find out he technically did meet his son.
Right, but he didn't
for a
know
long
that
period of time.
Yeah, and not getting to raise him and or whatever, see him, but not even knowing probably. And this is just a guess from us, but from all what it showed, maybe not even knowing. And if he did know, it makes it even more tragic because he had that knowledge.
Yeah,
and he knew if he did know, then he knew that John sent him back knowing what would happen to him. But because he even said, all I know is that he dies before the war.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. You know, and so he knows that John's father dies before the war. There's just so much tragic about it.
One-sided for it because, you know, John Connor knows. So you know that John Connor, you know, held him at high esteem because he's the one that he chose to send back. No, but John Connor knew why he had to send him back, but he's the one that had to send him back. So John kind of, you know, in a way, you know, he looked up at John as a fatherly figure. So, you know, he did have John not so much as a son, but as a fatherly figure, but there was still like the father-son, you know, dynamic there. And then even coming back, you know, he gets into a somewhat calm world. I don't think he even cared about that. He didn't care that there was hamburgers at every corner.
I know. I was like, man, if I come back, I'd have probably gone to like Taco Bell or something.
The most tragic thing about the whole thing
is that he didn't get a bean
Reese,
burrito from Taco Bell.
Well, that too, but
or a chalupa.
But the most tragic thing is the fact that he you know, he adored Sarah Connor. He loved her from the beginning, and he only got to spend those 2 days. That's the most tragic part.
And
with
maybe 6 hours of it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, more than that. Maybe about, you know, 20, 24 hours of it.
Yeah.
You know, the first day was convincing her that he's not a psychopath. So, real quick, this movie, free will or fate? I think it's fate because you know, he does say, you know, he has a message. He's, you know, John made me learn this. And it's, thank you, Sarah, for your courage to the dark years. I can't help you with what you must soon face except to tell you that the future is not set.
Yeah.
There is no fate but what we make for ourselves. You must be stronger than you can imagine you can be. Is this movie about fate? Because they say there's no fate with what you make. But the Terminator coming back, that's out of their hands. Right?
Yeah.
That's they don't have that, but it's the sole reason that John exists. Mm-hmm. So he didn't have any say in that. That wasn't a you know, fate. What you know is what you make. So I feel like fate is absolutely at play here. John wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the Terminators, but the Terminators might not have existed if it wasn't for, Kyle coming back and John being born and everything, because maybe that's what started Skynet, is that first Terminator coming back.
I think I agree with you, except for one part. I think it's fate for every single person in these film franchise except for John Connor. I think he's the only one, because he is an aboriginist. I just said that as a joke.
An aberration.
I know. He's an aboriginist. Okay, so
right. From the Aborigine colonies.
Yes,
right.
Correct. So I think he is the only one that has the free will, because he knows what's going to happen. He knows everything that's going to happen. Through Sarah telling him, the Terminator when he comes back. But I feel like John Connor is the only one, and again, we'll get into more later, but John Connor is the only one that has control, has the free will.
There's no fate but what we make for ourselves. And I believe that John has a plan. I think he's making a fate for everybody.
Yeah.
This is his plan between these two movies, and we'll get more into it next time. But I totally agree. I think that there's fate for everybody, but I think it can be both. I don't think that it's out of our hands. I think that we all still make decisions.
Yeah.
But if you're outside of time looking in, you see the decisions already made.
Yeah.
And you can tell that I know what your decision is going to be.
Yeah.
Then we see that as fate, because, well, it's going to happen anyways, because we can't see from outside of time. We can only see what's coming in front of us.
Yeah, well, and that's why I said with John Connor having free will, because he created everybody else's fate. He created the fate for every single person.
By sending Kyle back. He could have not sent it back. He could have said, I'm not sending Kyle back. Let's see what happens, because I've made this decision. But he's making these decisions.
And set up the fate for his mother, and set up fate for the Terminators, and even for himself in a way. He's setting up his own fate, because the future John Connor has all the control.
Yeah. And Skynet, there's always Judgment Day.
Yeah.
Now the next movie contradicts that, but does it? And we'll have more to say about that.
He could have said, hey, Sarah, grab the Terminator parts, throw them in a vat of...
He could have told Kyle everything, how it would go down. Let it happen this way, but do this, this, and this, or whatever. Or tell Sarah that if she finds herself, blah, blah. He could have said a lot, but he made a certain decision and then let fate play out after that. So it's a both. And I think he did it for certain reasons. And it's the reason that he sent back a Terminator as well in the next one, and allowed it to learn, and allowed himself to learn, because... Yeah. Did that Terminator have orders to not kill people before it was sent back? No. Young John had to tell him that. Old John could have told him that, knowing that this Terminator... He wasn't around in any of the timelines. He wasn't around when that Terminator in the second movie first comes back. Yeah. He didn't know if he killed anybody. Yeah. So he allowed that kill setting to still stay on in the Terminator, because he needed himself and his mother to learn some things. And we'll get more into that next week. But I really enjoy this movie. It's one of the rare movies that sits at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes for critic scores. Even Judgment Day sits at like 94. Yeah. Now, we don't like to look at critic scores. We like to look more at the audience review or whatever. But this is obviously one of these iconic, great movies from the 80s. Yes, it's dated. Yes, you will see some very outdated effects. You'll see some animatronics that don't hold over as well. But understand that back then, it was some good stuff. Stan Winston, who we're going to talk more about next episode, and everything. So it's an iconic movie just with the lore. The special effects aside, what it represents, what it's trying to tell, what it's trying to discuss. It's iconic. It's and you're talking about fate versus free will, and what our fate means to the future of mankind, or whatever it may be. So, anyways, did you enjoy this again?
I loved this movie. It's a great movie.
Are these the only two that you consider canon? Do you consider any of the others canon?
Yeah, like I said, Salvation, I feel like it can be canon too because, it basically tells the story of the creation of the Terminators in Salvation, in a way, with bringing in...
I like how it showed how John got his scar, his face scar in that fight and everything. And I like how, his heart was ruined. And
well, the main character in Salvation is not even John Connor. It's the guy that basically they designed all the Terminators after. He was the original.
I thought it was a new one because John said it was a new one because the Terminators were. Yeah, the Terminators were already built. Remember, because Arnold came out and fought John.
Yeah, but I thought that was they were in the brand new ones in production, the T-800s.
This was a new one where they laid a consciousness over.
Yeah.
And basically gave it free will, and they shouldn't have because this is what happens, and that's what they mention in the next movie is they don't let these Terminators walk around with their learning settings on, because they might revolt, and this one obviously did, but I don't know, they're all right movies. I'm for me, Terminator and Terminator 2, that's canon, that's it. Those other ones I can watch and everything, but I don't consider them part of the official story or whatever.
Well, Genesis, I mean, they kind of
Genesis can suck it.
they kind of copied it a little bit, but
I like Emilia Clarke. I can't stand Jai Courtney. Arnold's always great and everything. I don't know. It was awful. For me, it was awful. I like the guy who played John Connor. What's his name? I'll think about it later. But anyways, we enjoyed this movie. We hope you guys enjoyed it too. Please stick around for Terminator 2 next week. As we said, the 50-year anniversary is coming up, and we're going to do a bit of a longer episode, really diving into the lore. That next
30th anniversary, I think you said 50th.
Oh, 30th. That's what I meant, 30th. But yeah, we really want to dig into the lore of it, and really, we kind of restricted ourselves in this one because we want to talk about this one. But the next one, we'll be able to talk about the whole shebang. So we hope you guys join us for that. So if you guys want to get a hold of us, we're on all social media at The Post Credit Podcast, except for Twitter. We're at The Post Credit. Our email address is thepostcreditpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website. It's www.thepostcreditpodcast.com, and we're on YouTube. We appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next time.
And throw me a bone.